A college football tradition like no other.
Yes, sirree, boys and girls.
Or a guy that just won't leave.
Wow, that is sad.
The Dave Hooker Show. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Back to Dave Hooker.
Here we go, a Wednesday with Jimmy Hyams. And we've got a lot going on the program today. And I love this group, this community. So I'm just going to share something with you off the top that I want you to be aware of, because we got some feedback yesterday and it didn't sound self-serving. So we're going to get back to Brew McCoy and his foundation to get AEDs. But let me tell you about that. So first of all, Rick Barnes gives some revealing comments on the Vols at their media session. Is his philosophy changing? Kirby Smart says every SEC team should be ranked. Whoa, what? May I say Vanderbilt? And Vols first down efficiency, a great breakdown by Jimmy Hyams. He's gone back and not gone back. He's done it along the way, and he has actually broken down. How about this? Tennessee's first down efficiency since 1985. And it is historically good, something that's flown under the radar. And that's why we love having Jimmy Hyams in on a Wednesday. Also, early betting line has Tennessee football a 7-point favorite. So before we dig into today's tough question, just real quickly, does that line surprise you? Caleb, it does me.
It shocks me. It shocks me, honestly. And it shocks me that the line moved to that. It actually was close to double digits in the all season, and now it's moved down to 7, but it shocks me that it's still that high.
Yeah, what would you have put it at if you're if you're a part of what's going on right now? If you know college football like you do, what would you have it as? Yeah, I think I lost actually, Caleb. Can you hear me now? Okay, Caleb.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
This is actually all me. I apologize. I actually moved my mic and hit the mute button by accident.
Oh, okay. So should I go back to my original settings?
Yes,
Here we
go back to your settings. Go back to your settings, Dave.
Being on the fly. Here we go.
Give us your hour, guys. Here we
Let's see
go.
if this works. All right. Smoky Mountain Red, you're the last to post. Can you hear me? Can you hear Caleb? Okay, so we'll hear from you, but I think we can all hear everybody. Okay, so first down efficiency, amazing stats by Jimmy Hyams. You're just going to be blown away later in the program, and that should be a whole lot of fun. And also, we will have some interesting perspective into which player has been the most pleasant surprise for the Vols. So we're going to do this. It's called the Give 'em 6 campaign. We've started it, and we would encourage you, because we're proud of the book. We've worked hard on it. Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship game. And we're going to do a Give 'em 6 campaign. So for every book that is bought for a limited time, at least this week and next week headed into the AM game, every game that's bought, we will take $6 and we will donate that to the Peyton Walker Fund, which provides AEDs, which shocks you back to life. We saw that with the Bills. What was his name again? Caleb, I'm sorry. DeMar Hamlin. We saw that, and we want to be able to provide at least one AED to a school that might need it. So if you would like to order a book for a limited time, at least 10 days or so, I'm going to donate $6 for every book. Give him 6 in honor of Brew McCoy. His season is over, and we're going to hear more about that from Josh Heupel in a press conference today. So looking forward to that. And my goal is they're about $1,200 to $1,800. My goal is to to be able to provide at least one AED. But we'll see how things go. So if you want to take care of Christmas presents or you want to do any of that, this would be the time to do it, because I'm taking $6 from every book sold from today up until at least the A&M game, and we may go further if it just takes off. Smoky Mountain Red says AED saved one of my family members' life. But be honest with me, Smoky Mountain Red, does it sound like a ploy to sell books? Because that wasn't it. The books are doing great. I could have just kept rolling with that, but I wanted to do something to give back, because getting to know Cooper Mays and seeing the preseason injury that he suffered, that's a real man. Caleb, I think that we sometimes look at these guys as just units. And Caleb, I don't think we should do that. I know how bad it hurt Cooper to not play for his brothers. I know what a good guy Brew McCoy has become since arriving on campus. And so that's what I wanted to do. So I hope that's okay. And I got a win-win by Travis. Sounds like a great idea. You're a class act. Doesn't sound like a ploy. You're a legitimate, Dave. Well, I really appreciate that, because my wife and I went back and forth. Does it just sound like a book ploy? And no, it's not. We're very happy with the sales of the book, and the reviews have been fantastic. But you have to be sure and order them from my website, because Amazon takes so much darn money that I would lose money if I gave $6. So if you want to leave a review on Amazon, that really helps us. But if you want to order from the website, which is just down below, then I'm going to donate $6 for every book sold. So give them 6. I give them 6 campaign for the Peyton Walker Foundation in honor of Brew McCoy, and the check's going to have his name on it. It's not going to have mine. So there you go. Still a heartbreaking loss. I still haven't seen the injury. I don't want to see it. And so I'm going to leave it at that, because you compared it to Tyrone Prothro, and that was a bad one.
It was disturbing to watch. And yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it was a bad injury.
Okay, let's go ahead and get to today's tough question. And I love this one, because we get to talk some ball. Today's tough question now is brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports. Here we go. Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, let's talk some ball. Which player has been the most pleasant surprise for the Vols? Which player has been the biggest disappointment? So let me hear from you right now, and tell me what you're thinking on the message board. I'm going to go with you, Caleb, first, as far as most surprising and most disappointing. This would be our quarterly report card, even though it's 5 games. We're September report card, or whatever you want to call it. So biggest disappointment, I know exactly where you're going to go, and I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah, so most pleasant surprise, even though the expectations were high for him in the offseason, and I got to give our guy Fred White a shout out, because he was talking about him early in the season. I just didn't think he'd see the field, but it's been James Pierce Jr. I mean, he's immediately turned into the best edge rusher out there when you're in a group with Tyler Barron, Roman Harrison, Joshua Josephs, and he's doing more than even Byron Young did the last 2 years. I mean, James Pierce Jr. is the most pleasant surprise. This dude is a superstar.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. That was going to be mine too. I'm going to go opposite of you. I'm going to pick a different player no matter what. So that was going to be mine. And I know what your biggest disappointment is going to be, and that was going to be mine as well. So you're going to have to make me work a little bit, because I know yours has the initial of DT.
Yes. DT. That's also the first 2 letters of an acronym that millennials use that is a little dirty, but you know.
I don't want to know.
But yes, the most disappointing is obviously Dante Thornton. And I'm going to say disappointing too I mean this in a very negative way. It's disappointing to the point of borderline disgraceful, because it's disappointing based on a lack of effort to me more than it is actual lack of talent. And I'm sorry, when you're not good because you're not giving your all, like what you talked about with James Banks in the early 2000s, that's disappointing to the point of disgraceful.
I'm with you. I got no argument with that. I think we overhyped Dante Thornton just a little bit. I will give you, and thanks for the book orders already. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. And we're going to get one AED, even if I have to make up the money to get the one AED, which is about $1,200 to $1,500. Somebody saying that they have already that they know somebody in their family that was saved by an AED. All right, my most disappointing player, I guess, would be Dante Thornton. It's hard to go outside of that realm, but I'm going to go a combo. And this sounds mean because he's a hometown guy, and I think he's a super kid. But it's three guys. Disappointing. It's Ollie Lane, Andre Keurig, and Addison Nichols. They played their best. I believe that. But in particular, Addison Nichols, I believe, has more talent, and he needs to get his stuff together like by next year. Andre Keurig should have been in the starting lineup as a transfer from Texas. He was not. So that's very frustrating to me. The most surprising, you got me beat on the board, guys. It's McCallan Castles. McCallan Castles doesn't just look like a good tight end to me. He looks like an NFL tight end to me, and he's had limited touches. And you got to remember, he had to put on about 20, 25 pounds. This is the way it works at UC Davis, where he was and where he transferred from. You get a food allowance, so you go home and make your own food. At Tennessee, you show up and you choose basically between filet, lobster, and pasta. And he's been able to put on the weight, keep his speed, and just eye test. I haven't seen him enough yet, but just eye test, Caleb. I think he's going to play at the next level. And tell me a better transfer that they got out of the group, and we would have had him 4th or 5th.
In terms of transfers, you are right. He's pretty high up there. I got to be high on, Keenan Peely is an incomplete. We got to be fair to him. I like what Omar Norman-Lott has done on the defensive line for Tennessee. Omar Norman-Lott has been very good on the defensive line for Tennessee. Gabe Jeudy-Lally has been exactly what you said he'd be, a reliable utility player in the secondary. And let's give our guy, by the way, we didn't talk about this on Saturday, Dave, but he's been up and down, but you can see the development and the effort. John Campbell Jr. played really well on Saturday against South Carolina.
And Travis says, great new avatar, by the way. Is that Josh Heupel in a Batman suit? Travis says, Ollie has given it all. I totally agree. And I hate to be hardcore on the young man. I certainly wouldn't say it to his face. But if he watches the show, I got mucho respect for you, my man. You were put in a difficult position, and you did your best.
I don't think he was a disappointment, though, because he was forced in at center. That's not his natural position, and he wasn't.
Well, then maybe I just need to jump to Addison Nichols and Andre.
Yeah, it's Addison Nichols because Addison Nichols hasn't developed at center. Addison Nichols should have been ready to go with Cooper Mays out.
And he's got to be your guy next year. I mean, that's the way it's slated. Brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sport, what you see is what you get. And with their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash for a welcome bonus. Earn an unlimited 5% cash back on the betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the promo code HOOKED. That's right, HOOKED. You get unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month. After that, refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. All right. So, any more disappointments? Any more surprises? How about Wesley Walker as a surprise? Doesn't he deserve a nod? I mean, he was good.
He's a surprise to not ball guys. If you're not a ball guy, he's a surprise. If you cover Tennessee at the end of last year, he's not a surprise. He was very, very good at the end of last year. And I think that's a big testament to Wesley Walker. I can't think of too many more pleasant surprises. Again, some have done exactly what we projected. I mean, again, I mentioned John Campbell Jr. He was raw and made some mistakes the opening week, and you've seen it go off and on, but you've seen development. And I love guys that develop and get better as the year goes on. And I think the bye week is going to be great for him. I mean, now, Dave, I can honestly say this. I criticized him for making a lot of mental mistakes, but I I got to say that he deserves a lot of credit because now you're seeing the potential superstar at left tackle in John Campbell Jr. when what you saw was raw potential, and now you're seeing real talent develop. The opposite of Dante Thornton, where you see real talent and absolutely no development and no effort whatsoever. And I'm sorry, I'm being harsh, but I'm going to keep harping on just how disgraceful it is that Dante Thornton has been a disappointment because it's totally on lack of care and effort and nothing else.
Yep. Again, Zen Sports use the promo code HOOKED. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. The breakout player next year, Smoky Mountain Red just posted, it's going to be Ethan Davis. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, that's going to be the guy next year. Omar Norman Lott has been a good transfer as well. I see him active on the field. You shake your head though, Caleb. You don't.
No. I agree. He's got moxie to him, Omar Norman Lott.
All right, so let's go back to surprises because we felt like we knew this team, right? So
big one, Kamal Hadden. Y'all can hate on Kamal Hadden all day, but Kamal Hadden has actually been a very good cornerback for Tennessee this year. And I know he's going to talk a lot. He might get you a penalty here and there, and he might get cooked every now and then, but you guys remember Cortland Finnegan with the Titans? I think Kamal Hadden is kind of like that. Kamal Hadden has a little bit of Cortland Finnegan in him.
Huh. Okay. Now I'm going to throw this on you, and I don't throw you under the bus often, but I'm going to. How about Aaron Beasley? You didn't think much of him to start the season. He's been incredibly active.
No, that's just on me, not as a surprise overall. I'm surprised, but I should not have been surprised. How about that? That was me.
Well, yeah, I was kind of with you. I thought he was limited, and I wondered with his brother committing if that was a package deal.
It's possible it was a package deal. I think it's similar to Elijah Herring was recruited to get. Well, no, yeah, Elijah Herring was recruited to get Caleb Herring. Aaron Beasley was there to get Caleb Beasley. Oh my gosh, 2 Calebs. I just thought about that in my head with brothers, and my name is Caleb too. But by the way, for those who don't know biblical terms, Caleb was the guy who was housed by the prostitute, by the hooker in the book of Joshua to take down Jericho.
Well, I didn't know that, but now I do. Travis says he's also been terrible. He's missed the 2 biggest tackles possibly of his
Kamal Hadden?
Now, I believe he's he's referring to the 2 missed tackles, the one that went viral and went crazy.
He's still playing his butt off. Y'all got to give Kamal Hadden some respect. Yes, it was a bad missed tackle against Florida, but in terms of coverage, y'all are being unfair to Kamal Hadden. I think because Kamal Hadden talks, it stands out more when he gets beat, but you're ignoring some of the moxie that he puts in throughout the game that's needed by the defense.
Well, and I'll say this too about another player that I think that we could have this debate about. Whether or not it's any of the transfers, let's remember they haven't been in long, and I think this continues to gel. But with Aaron Beasley, I'm telling you that he's played better than Caleb thought, and he's played way better than I thought. I'll throw another one in there as far as biggest surprise. How about Caleb Herring? I think he's done well. So
Caleb or Elijah? You mean Elijah?
Elijah Herring. You got me stuck on Caleb names. What are you doing?
Elijah's done well, but I thought he struggled against. Would it have been? It was Florida. I think he struggled against, but I think that was more. But but then he looked a lot better against South Carolina, to his credit. So he's developing. So I'll give him credit on that.
I feel like I'm missing somebody, but there we go. It is time for What the H, and What the H is brought to you by our friends at Annie Mason Real Estate, AnnieMasonRealEstate.com. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Guys, I'm going to tell you to jump all over this number on Texas A&M side. The early betting line has Tennessee a 7-point favorite versus Texas A&M. Caleb, what am I missing? Here's what we know. You tell me what we know about A&M. And I'll tell you what we know about Tennessee. Here's what we know about Tennessee. They played a Florida team and lost that got pushed around by Kentucky. Also, there was the Cooper Mays issue. I realized that, and I think communication was a problem. They beat a South Carolina team that's not good, and then they beat a UTSA team that's not very good, a Virginia team that's not very good, and an Austin Peay team they looked awful beating. So I don't gamble, but when I do, I feel pretty confident. I think this is less than a 7-point game with Texas A&M coming to town. Before we get to that and your thoughts, what do you think of Texas A&M this season? Give us a breakdown for those that are tailgating and can't be in front of the television or doing whatever they're doing, and they're just thinking about the Vols. What did they not know about that Aggie team out west?
So Texas A&M, and by the way, I want people to know this up front. I am one of those people who makes picks. I put my pride on picks, but I'm not like Skip Bayless where I'm going to go down with the ship when I realize I'm wrong and try to make an excuse for it. No, I was wrong on Texas A&M. I thought they were going to come apart under Bobby Petrino. Their backup quarterback, Mac. Now, I was partially wrong because their quarterback got hurt, and Max Johnson's a better quarterback. Their backup. That dude is a baller, Dave. He is a baller, and he is an NFL quarterback. I'm just telling you guys that right now from what I saw.
Brad Johnson's son, he was raised by a quarterback, so I think he has a good feel for the position. I'm a little confused why he wasn't the starter from the get, but I'll let Bobby Petrino explain that one.
I am too. So I think I would put Tennessee -3 to 4. And basically the only thing I'm doing is giving Tennessee the line based on the NFL, how NFL does it with home field advantage. I think the line gives you 3 points for being at home. That's what I would do.
You think neutral site, this is an even game?
I think neutral site, it's an even game. And I would not have said that at the beginning of the year. I'm going Tennessee -3 to 4. Now, here's what I think Vegas is doing. And I saw this on the message board, and I want to mention it too. I think they're questioning Max Johnson going to Neyland for the first time. I think they're overreacting a little bit to how loud the crowd was against South Carolina. Not that it won't be loud against Texas A&M, but there's a couple of things. Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher call plays in the huddle, and then you run that play. So the communication is you're not going to have to worry if you're Texas A&M about communication issues on the road because there's not a lot of communicating at the line of scrimmage. You know what you get that, right? What I'm saying. And so
I totally get it.
It's the total reverse of the Heupel offense, there's a lot of communication at the line of scrimmage. There's very little with Bobby Petrino's offense. So I don't think the crowd, I think they're giving Tennessee 5 to 6 points, which I do think in college football, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think they should give more points for home field advantage for big college football stadiums like Neyland than they should in the NFL. They're going to give you 3 for the NFL. You should get like 5 for playing at Neyland. Honestly.
That's a good point. Whereas if you play, let's say Vanderbilt was good at some point, what do they get, a point or 2? I mean, your own fans are showing up.
If you're Tennessee, you give Tennessee 2 points because they're basically playing at home against Vanderbilt.
Well, and I imagine all the other schools are like that too, right? I mean, I haven't checked out Vanderbilt's games and their fans, but if I'm Alabama or Georgia, yeah, I would like to go to Nashville. That's a cool city, and watch my team hammer the Commodores. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't you think that every team's probably like that?
It's a vacay. Team C going to play Vanderbilt it's just like Team C going to Jerry World. They're not playing the Cowboys. They get to see Jerry World, and they get to tour the stadium. I'm sorry, Dave.
What do you think if Robert says we need legal counsel? I'm confused by that. But what do you think if we did a vacay in like the script that we have Vanderbilt use and do it in their same colors? What would you think about that? Called vacay, and maybe on the back you could have Go Vols or Roll Tide or whoever it is. Could we sell shirts like that? It's a vacay.
That would be hilarious. And Vanderbilt, they wouldn't. I would say Vanderbilt fans would be so mad, but they wouldn't care. Most Vanderbilt fans know what they are, to their credit. They're there for academics. I'll say though, where I was getting it with Neyland, the only reason I would do closer to the NFL line next week and not like the 5 to 6 points that I think you should get playing at Neyland is because it's in the afternoon and because Texas A&M doesn't change a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage, so there won't be the communication issues. So I think a standard. So that's why I said Tennessee by 3 to 4. I don't know where 7 is coming from.
I tell you what Vanderbilt needs. They need a visit from the Hemp House, a premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechats with 2Ts.com. They can deliver anywhere, and you get 10% off. I don't know if they need it. I think the CBD's for the physical pain and the Delta 9s to have a good time. They could probably use a little bit of both. Vandy is there to help the heart after the AED saves it, and not football. We're going to provide an AED with someone to, but I would like for it to be a high school. It's not going to be Vanderbilt. They got the dad play money. The thing that makes me mad about Vanderbilt, I'm just going to say this, is they've got all the money in the world and nobody invests in football. Does that not make you mad? I mean, it would just take a couple of people. My cousin graduated from Vanderbilt. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He has his own jet. He doesn't pack luggage when he goes on trips. He goes on trips and his wife buys clothes.
Dave, why invest in football when you can take the money from the SEC?
Well,
by the way, this is, if you think about it.
I mean, my cousin, who I love, gave me a great new hip. If he wanted him, if 20 of those guys wanted to invest, you would be talking about a different Vanderbilt program.
Well, and this is why you know what? Vanderbilt is socialism for rich people. Because here's what's happening. Vanderbilt, people who graduate from Vanderbilt probably make more money than people who graduate from any other school in the SEC, right, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Vanderbilt contributes nothing from a football perspective to the SEC, but they are happy to take the revenue from the SEC that Tennessee and Texas A&M and Florida and Georgia and Alabama produce, and all these school students make less money in the field than Vanderbilt. So it is rich people taking money from regular people. Vanderbilt should be kicked out of the SEC for that.
I'm fine with that. With that. If they can't make an investment in their own sport, that's embarrassing.
Vanderbilt is the bankers who took a bailout in 2008 after crashing the economy.
Ouch. Speaking of making an investment, you need to do so with Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. He brings you, what the H? With Andy Mason, you've got the best service and the best prices in the biz. That's pretty awesome. That's Andy Mason. So we love him, and he is just fantastic. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. You know you'll get the best prices. I'll be honest with you. I went to school with Andy, to high school, and I thought to myself, well, he's younger than me. I'm going to go with another realtor. Biggest mistake of my life that got me out of my current house at a bad price, got me into a house at a bad price. And I was like, Andy, I made a mistake. He goes, I thought you should call me. And sure enough, I did. And he is that great. I can assure you, tell him Off the Hook Sports sent you. Also, I mentioned that Greene County Middle School had lost a player. I don't know if that was AED related or not. So I remind you that every book sold, and until we tell you otherwise, at least up until the A&M game, we're got to give them 6 campaign. So we are going to give $6 for every book sold, and to the Peyton Walker Fund, which provides AEDs, and those are the things that they can shock your heart back to life. And that was Brew McCoy's charity of choice. And I'm glad that you guys saw it the way I saw it. I want to get back. It's not about selling more books. I do also want to keep your children safe. Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership experience, specializations, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer one school at a time. That's HeraldGRP.com, HeraldGRP.com. They're working with private schools now, but they will be working with public schools very shortly, because we're getting some legislation changed. That's what we're taking care of. So there we go. We're getting that legislation changed. So Jimmy Hyams is going to join us up next. And what do we got on tap for Jimmy when he joins us?
Dave, we have a column by Jimmy on the Vols' first down efficiency. I'm going to talk with Jimmy, too, about Kirby Smart saying every SEC team should be ranked. I don't know. That wasn't very Kirby Smart of him to say. But so we're going to talk about those things, plus a little bit of Tennessee basketball. Rick Barnes made some revealing comments yesterday. So comments that make me actually, if you're a Tennessee fan, think you should be encouraged about Rick Barnes and what he's doing for the future.
No, I like it. And yeah, with the thing that Jimmy's going to break down too is first down efficiency. He has been he has been breaking down and charting. I never charted because I felt like I could see the game bigger in the press box, but he's charted every play. He doesn't depend on the sports information department, and he's charted every play in Tennessee football since 1985. And the first down efficiency this year, at least before, well, it's probably every bit as good, but before the UTS game was really strong. Smoky Mountain Red says, I did put together an AD on the book and an AED, and we can all share on socials. So I don't know what you mean by AD, but I tell you what, it is on my Off the Hook Sports page. It is, if you haven't friended me yet, go ahead and friend me on Facebook and please share. I would certainly appreciate that. But again, $6 for every book sold. The Give Him Six campaign goes to the Peyton Walker Fund for Brew McCoy's charity. And we're going to try to provide at least one AED to a school that needs it. And we've already had a couple of people. It's out there, Smoky Mountain Red, on advertisement. So if you want to share, that'd be great. Somebody just said they already bought 3 books. That means a lot. So it's not a ploy to sell books. I just feel really bad for Brew McCoy, because if you heard half the stuff I hear about Brew McCoy and what a real dude he was, and not the typical transfer that had problems getting in, you would be blown away. I have to tell you that I missed Butch Jones, Arkansas State, at UMass by 1 week. Okay, so I was going to do a bio on him and maybe a book, but I missed him because I'm going to the University of Massachusetts to see my son. So I missed him by 1 week. The Butcher played there last week, so I'm sorry I won't have anything on Butch, but I'm going to leave you and Caleb with Jimmy Hyams, as I've got to go up to UMass and see my son. Is he homesick? Yeah, but he won't tell me he is. 2 minutes right after this, and it's Jimmy Hyams. Caleb Calhoun will drive you through. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. We certainly appreciate you. Coming up, Jimmy Hyams' first down stats is just going to be unbelievable. Stay tuned.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited. Welcome back to the show. Dave has got to fly to UMass, and he really did miss Butch Jones. By the way, Jimmy, you probably remember this. Jimmy Hyams here with us. It was after the UMass game, wasn't it, when Butch Jones went off on you, I believe, wasn't it, for asking the Shy Tuttle question?
I can't remember how many times he went off on me, Caleb. I just know that every time I asked a question, I tried to present it with a 5-star heart. and he didn't always accept it. So, yeah, the Shy Tuttle. Basically, what happened? Nigel Warrior punched Shy Tuttle, and so I asked, and Jones kept dodging the question. So I just asked him, how did Shy Tuttle get the injury? And he said he fell on a helmet. And of course, everybody in the room knew he was lying. And so, so that went over real well from Butch trying to cover up a situation in which one of his players punched another. Yeah.
Jimmy, what do we want out of our media?
Honesty, right?
Right. I thought everyone. I've memorized that speech because I've watched that rant so many times. Where it's like, if everyone here is Vol fans, I'm like, do you not realize that the people covering you are not Vol fans? They're covering you for Vol fans. And
here's the interesting background on that too. So I'm sitting next to John Adams, and I said, John, are you going to ask the question about Shy Tuttle? He said, sure. So he kept raising his hand, and they wouldn't call on him. So I raised my hand. They called on me. I handed the mic to John. And they went nuts. No. We gave the mic to you. John can't. Okay. So John handed the mic back to me, and that's when I asked the question. So
it was the question was coming.
It was kind of a circus, and a lot of the folks in the media started laughing about it because they realized what was going on.
Oh, that was great stuff. Moving on to a more competent coach and a more competent team. Talking about this year's Tennessee football program. Jimmy, you had a great article last week on first down efficiency for Tennessee football and how historically good it is so far this year. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But first, give me just a quick rundown of what you tracked.
Well, against in this offense and a hurry-up offense, I think a lot of it's predicated on momentum. If you can get a good yardage on first down, you get a first down on first down, they run more of an up-tempo. And they're much more efficient when they get a good gain on first down. All right, and I think more so in this system. So here's what Texas San Antonio, Tennessee had 31 first downs and gained 395 yards. I have never seen a stat like that. Caleb, I track games when I watch them. I'm working. I'm not just sitting there, look at that play. I'm tracking, I'm charting, I'm doing third downs, all this stuff. 31 first down plays, 395 yards. Then against South Carolina, this is really efficient too. 33 first downs, 249 yards. They had 16 plays of over 5 yards. They had 11 plays of over 10 yards. Contrast that with Florida. They struggled against Florida. 25 plays on first down, 94 yards. That just tells you how important first down production is in this offense. And against South Carolina, on any drive in which they got a first down, I think they scored on maybe 6 out of 8 drives in which they got a first down, which is a really high percentage. So I think in this offense, first down efficiency is of paramount importance.
Do you think that has something to do with this offense? It's not what everybody expects from a Josh Heupel offense. They're a lot more run-oriented, and they run the ball well. And do you think that has a lot to do with the first down efficiency?
Yeah, I do. Well, they spread the field. And so the old mantra that you hear, take advantage of what the defense gives you, and they're able to do that. But in spreading the field, it creates positive numbers in the run game. For example, a lot of teams only have 5 or 6 in the box. If another team has 5 or 6 in the box, that's a running down, and an efficient running down, in particular if you have good running backs. You don't have to have a great offensive line. Just get somebody in the way. Because you don't have that much, you really have almost no safety help, and then and sometimes the linebackers spread out, so you've got some running lanes that you can create just by getting in somebody's way. So I think by spreading the field, they've got receivers, and you've seen this. They got receivers from sideline to sideline, 53 yards apart, and you've got to respect that. And if you don't, Tennessee's going to throw it to them. So they spread the field in many instances to run the football, not to pass it.
Yeah, and a crucial part of this offense, I believe, is to run the football, and it does require good interior blocking. And do you think part of the problem with Florida was, I don't know if you're like me, liking to call out names, but I just don't think Andre Carrick was able to handle that moment at left guard, and I think that really cost Tennessee on. I think that's why their first down efficiency was so bad.
I don't think Ollie Lane did either. I think those two hurt. Florida had depending on who you listen to, either a 440-pound nose tackle or 380. I don't know what he weighs, but he outmanned Tennessee up front. And I don't think Carrick played well either. I think the middle of the line did not play well at all. And so Florida was able to stuff the run with the 4-man front without a whole lot of help. So, yeah, I think that was important. And so, and to be honest with you, Texas San Antonio's front four is not that great. Neither is South Carolina's. And so they were able to run the ball very efficiently against those teams. Now, when they start the A&M, that's one of the best fronts they're going to face. Alabama, it's one of the best fronts they'll face. Georgia, it's one of the best fronts they'll face. So they've got some really good defensive front fours and front sevens that they're going to be facing as the schedule advances. So that'll be interesting to see how efficient the Tennessee running game is against those teams.
Yeah, and doesn't that – I know fans are somewhat frustrated with Joe Milton's performance through the first 5 games, and it's been inconsistent. But part of that is, Dave, to have those deep shots – Dave, listen to me. Jimmy, to have those deep shots over the middle that Hendon Hooker had last year, you've got to be able to run the ball well in this offense, don't you?
You do. Yeah, you've got to be able to run it well. And also, when you have a deep shot and the guy's open, you got to be able to hit him. Hooker was better at that than Milton. And here's the cardinal sin that Milton committed. He followed Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker had one of the greatest years that Tennessee quarterbacks ever had. Some have argued the greatest when you look at his passing efficiency, when you look at his 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He ran for 430 yards. He would have run for more had he not been hurt against South Carolina. So he would have had 2.5 more games to pile up his rushing stats. He was outstanding and a Heisman Trophy finalist. Milton doesn't possess the same skill set. Now, he doesn't. He's a capable runner. He just doesn't like to run. He sees himself as a pocket passer. So, and also he's not as accurate as Hooker. He just misses too many open receivers. Got a great arm, but it doesn't matter if you can't hit the guy. So, I think he's a pretty good quarterback, Caleb. I just don't think he's as good as Hendon Hooker, and that's who he is judged against by a lot of Tennessee fans.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with Heupel's offense, fluidity with your mobility and deep ball accuracy are the 2 most important things. And Hooker had both of those.
I might add one more: quick decision making.
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
And Hooker was really good at that, and reading the defense and knowing when to pull it or keep it on the zone read. And that's why the offense looks so fluid. I don't think Joe's quite as adept as Hooker at that.
Yeah, those passes over the middle, he's always late in deciding to throw it over the middle. You're right. And that's a big issue. It's funny you bring this up because this is kind of a summer conversation Dave and I had. You weren't on the show at the time, but I'd love your perspective on it because we're talking about these type of traits to run the Heupel offense. Which previous Tennessee quarterback would have thrived in it? And I came down to either T. Martin or Heath Schuler. Who would have been the best at running the Heupel offense among previous Tennessee quarterbacks?
Boy, those 2 would have been really good. I give you another one I think would have been real good because he was such a good runner is Josh Dobbs. Dobbs was not – Schuler was a more accurate passer. T. Martin's accuracy was maybe slightly better than Dobbs. I know he had that 23 completions in a row, and people point to that, but he also had several games where he completed 55% or less. But Schuler was more accurate. I think Schuler and then Martin and then Dobbs would have been really, really effective in this offense.
Yeah, my only reservation about Dobbs is do you think the arm strength would have held him back in Josh Heupel's offense, or the lack of arm strength?
You know, that's a good question. Here's the deal that I look at with arm strength. I always point to this guy that came from Florida named Danny Werfel. He didn't have a great arm, but rather than taking a 5-step drop and throwing it, he would take a 3-step drop and throw it. And so instead of throwing it 55 yards downfield, maybe it was a 40-yard pass, but it was on time. It was accurate. And so maybe you ask Dobbs to throw it quicker. So he doesn't have to throw a 55-yard pass. He's throwing it maybe 40 in the air. And because those receivers, when they get open, and they do get open a lot in this offense, you just have to hit them. So I would ask Dobbs to probably throw it a little bit sooner than those others.
Yeah, and I think Danny Werfel, the big thing with him was he was always willing to take the hit after he threw it, too.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was a tough character.
Yeah, and that's probably why they lost that 96 game to Florida State. And then didn't they get revenge because they put him in the shotgun because he took way too many hits in the regular season game?
Well, and I may be a little off on it, the revenge I think was 52-21. They destroyed Florida State in the Sugar Bowl. So, yeah, that they had to change, and they did. Sometimes Spurrier's hard-headed and wouldn't change, but he had to in that case, and it worked.
And it's funny to actually mentioning Spurrier, and we talk about first down efficiency. I wanted to go there because that's a similarity with Heupel too, where Spurrier wanted to run the ball a lot too, right? He spread the field, but then he always had an elite running back, didn't he, in the 90s that you had to respect?
He typically did. I think he had Eric Rhett. I think he had Fred Taylor. But here's what I remember about what Spurrier would do. Spurrier would throw the ball a lot early and build a lead, and then run it in the second half when you're trying to play catch up. So he's still spreading the field, but now he's running it and he's running some more clock. So that's a lot of what Florida did. Throw it to build the lead, run in the second half to hold the lead.
So you think that seemed to be a problem with Spurrier, whereas if it was a close game, he got a little bit impatient and was trying to force the passing game sometimes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He did that against – I think he lost 2 in a row to Auburn. And I think that was a big factor in that. He got impatient, started throwing it down the field. He even went into one Auburn game. It was really a ridiculous thing to do. But he went in and said, well, if my quarterback Terry Dean doesn't play well, I just go to my backup. Who does that? Who says, hey, if my quarterback doesn't play well, I'm going to bench him? I mean, and so what happened? Terry Dean didn't play well. They went to the backup and they lost the game.
That's what you had to love about him was his honesty, though. Never lied. I've never known Spurrier. I remember him kind of being on. I think he hurt Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, he still went number 1, but I remember he kind of was open about Jadeveon didn't really give it his all his last year at South Carolina, and basically said
no, he was right. Yeah, but nobody says that. Yeah, nobody says
that. Speaking of coaches, I wanted to move on a little bit because I don't know if you saw that Georgia's head coach Kirby Smart was in the news yesterday for saying something that I thought, as I told Dave, wasn't very smart, which was he was asked about Georgia playing the first-ranked team all year in Kentucky, and he said, well, in my opinion, everybody in the SEC should be ranked, which I'm like, seriously? You're going to say that this year when the SEC is clearly down and they're still Vanderbilt in the SEC? What were your thoughts on Kirby Smart saying that?
It was just dumb coach speak. I mean, clearly not everybody in the league deserves to be ranked. There are a lot of teams in the league that have a losing record. You're not going to rank Arkansas. You're not going to rank Mississippi State. You're certainly not going to rank Vanderbilt. So I took that as a coach that not only, well, he said something stupid, but I think what he's trying to do was to say, hey, the SEC is better than you guys think it is. You know, y'all are talking about how we're not as good. Well, we got all these teams that ought to be ranked. No, Caleb, you're right. The SEC is not as good as it's been. It doesn't have the elite teams that it did. To me, Georgia's more beatable than it's been in 3 or 4 years. Alabama is hamstrung by their quarterback situation. They're not as good as they have been. They're not the powerhouse. So there's a pretty good chance that Georgia and Alabama are going to lose to somebody in the regular season along the way. But, yeah, that was just a dumb statement by Kirby Smart. Nobody believes it, and if you gave him some truth serum, I think he'd tell you he doesn't believe it either.
Yeah, if you were going to be more honest, I would have said, if I were Kirby Smart and I were an honest person as a head coach, I would have said, well, I don't know if Kentucky's legitimately ranked. Are they ranked in name only, or are they ranked because they got a 5-0 start, played nobody really good? Wouldn't that have been a better response?
Well, no, because that would have fired up Kentucky. You know, now that would have been dumb too. So that would have been just as stupid as saying all of them should be ranked. What if he had said, I think everybody in the SEC should be ranked except Vanderbilt? How do you think that would have gone over?
That would have been great. That would have been hilarious. But, I mean, the reason if I'm being honest on truth serum, though, I'm saying there is an argument that maybe he could say that Auburn was a tougher test for Georgia than Kentucky because Auburn on the road is tougher than Kentucky at home, I think, this year. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
no, I think that, and as you know, that's a rivalry that goes back to like 1892 or something. I thought Auburn would give them a pretty decent game, but they gave them a better game than I expected. Georgia's been a slow starter. I mean, they were tied with UAB 7-7 into the second quarter. South Carolina led them 14-3. So this is not the same team with the same stinger that it had the last 2 years. That still doesn't mean they can't turn it on at some point. And when I think about that, I think about NBA teams. I'll see NBA teams just kind of lollygag through the regular season. Then when they get in the playoffs, boom, all of a sudden they start playing great. Maybe Georgia does that in the second half of the season, maybe against some of the better teams. They play more to their level. and not down to the opponent's level. I thought Georgia would give them a pretty decent game, but I picked it as a 10-point game. But I certainly didn't think that Auburn would have a lead like it did and then have a chance in the fourth quarter like it did, which tells me that Georgia's still trying to find its way a little bit, I think, on offense. Their quarterback has been okay. He actually had some pretty good numbers against Auburn, and he was really good in the fourth quarter, thanks to Brock Bowers. But I think Georgia's beatable. I think they have a really good defense again, but offensively, they're not what they used to be.
Yeah, I'm going to take it a step further because I'm seeing what Lamar Jackson right now is doing with the Ravens in the NFL. Todd Monken was a big loss for them at offensive coordinator. And I don't care what anybody says. I think Mike Bobo was a dramatic downgrade, honestly.
Well, and here's the thing. If you look at it, and we had this question. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. So Georgia lost its quarterback and its offensive coordinator. Their offense is not as good, right? Alabama lost its quarterback, a Heisman Trophy winner, and its offensive coordinator. They're not as good. Tennessee lost its quarterback and offensive coordinator, and Tennessee's not as good. I would say the Tennessee issue has more to do with Hooker versus Milton than it does going from Alex Golesh to Josh Heupel. Heupel had success as a play caller at Missouri, Central Florida, et cetera. So, but those three teams are not as efficient on offense as they were a year ago. And the common denominator is new quarterback, new offensive coordinator.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the team Georgia is playing this week also has a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator. Yeah. And that was a massive upgrade. And Jimmy, I'm a big Titans fan. And the more I watch Devin Leary at Kentucky playing better, I matter that my Titans drafted Will Levis. Because I don't know how he was so hyped up last year. He's nowhere near as good as Devin Leary is.
The people that watched him, the people that cover the SEC, knew that Will Levis was not that good. He had a lot of physical skills. Now, I'll say this. Against Tennessee a couple of years ago, he had a great game. Against Tennessee last year, Tennessee won 44-6. 44-6. And Will Levis was awful. And I know they kept saying, well, he's hurt, he's injured, he's got a bad offensive line, blah, blah, blah. And a new offensive coordinator. I think Liam Cohen is a heck of an upgrade over the guy they had last year. But having said all that, I thought Will Levis was the 4th or 5th round draft pick. I did not see him. And most people, as you remember, had him projected pretty high in the first round. A lot of people had him in the top 10. But I just don't get it with him. Look, in 5 or 7 years, I may be saying I'm wrong. But, boy, I don't see it with Will Levis.
I'm totally with you on that. Do you think it's good news for Tennessee long-term that, look, Billy Napier said he's going to stay Florida's offensive play caller, which I think Tennessee fans should be happy about. Dowell Lockins is at South Carolina. I'm sorry. I think he's a horrendous offensive coordinator. And I just say that from watching him as a Titans fan in 2010 and 2011, when he thought that he didn't want Peyton Manning because Jake Locker was his guy. Just y'all remember that. He thought Jake Locker was better for him than Peyton Manning. And
did he really?
Yes, remember Peyton. It was down to the Titans and the Broncos where Peyton Manning was.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and the coaches at Tennessee thought that they didn't want to change their offense up for Peyton, even though Bud Adams was going to write a blank check because they thought they had a good thing for the future with Jake Locker. And
oh gosh.
Yes. Yes. So I am pulling my hair. I could talk at length on just every stupid decision the Titans have ever made, and I'm like,
that's at the top.
That's at the top. Yeah, that was a bad one. And so, but do you think it bodes well for Tennessee that there are just a lot of, I think, not good offensive coordinators or offensive coaches in the SEC right now outside of Kentucky?
Yeah, I think that does bode well for them, and it makes those other teams more beatable. Now, one of the offenses out there that's doing really well is at LSU, but how'd their defense do against Ole Miss? So they ran up 55 on them, and then I think of Ole Miss as having a really good offense. Excuse me, but Alabama shut them down, held them to 10. That really surprised me that Alabama held Ole Miss to 10. I just think that was a bad day at the office for Ole Miss, and Alabama's got a good defense, but not that good. So I don't think there are a lot of – when you look at the stats, I think it's very misleading. If you look at SEC stats, you'll see a lot of teams averaging over 30 points a game. So now flip the page and see what their schedule is like. A Look at who Kentucky has played. Look at who some of these other teams have played that have been averaging over 30 points a game. That'll tell you a pretty good story about why they're scoring so much. I think most offenses in the SEC are flawed a little bit and not as good as they were a year ago. I mean, even at Mississippi State, they got Will Rogers coming back, one of the most prolific passers in the SEC ever. And the first few games, they were trying to run the football, and he threw 17 passes in one game. He threw for 104 yards against LSU. And you know how bad LSU secondary is. What were they thinking? So finally they decided to turn him loose, and against South Carolina, he threw for 487 yards. So that's pretty dumb coaching. So you got that factor along with some of the quarterbacking in the league is just not as good as it was a year ago.
Yes, I agree. That's a big problem. And yeah, LSU's really let me down. I picked them to win the SEC this year. I think they're making the mistake that you guys know about it. Dave taught me about this, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that Tennessee tried to force Leonard Little in at middle linebacker in 1997, which to me is just, I can't believe they thought. Yeah. And it seems like Brian Kelly's trying to do the same thing with Harold Perkins at middle linebacker now.
What? When you've got an elite pass rusher and elite skill like that, why in the world would you do that? Now, I watched him in a recent game where he was playing on the perimeter and he dominated. I can't speak to the Ole Miss game. I didn't really see that game, but I'm trying to remember who that was LSU beat, where he was terrific on the edge because they finally allowed him to play on the edge. And I'm like, why overthink this? Why are you trying to outsmart people with this? Just if you've got an elite player like that, put him in outside linebacker, put him in defensive end, let him get after the quarterback and disrupt the quarterback and change the complexion of the game.
I totally agree. I don't know if you think this. Fred White thinks that Tennessee's back-to-back national champs if they put Al Wilson at middle linebacker and Leonard Little on the edge in 1997. Not sure if they beat Nebraska, but
well, I'm not sure either, but I remember having a discussion about, I asked a coach on the staff, why don't you play Al Wilson at middle linebacker? And he said, no, he's better suited for outside linebacker. Well, then they moved in middle linebacker and they won the national championship. So, yeah, I didn't get that one. And Leonard Little, he made a lot of tackles, but where was he making them? He was making them 3, 5, 7 yards downfield. That's not where you want Leonard Little. You want him after your quarterback. You want him sacking the quarterback. You want him force him into bad throws or force him into interceptions. So I did not think that was a good move.
Yeah, you were absolutely right on that. Jimmy, we're about to go to break. Can you stick around for the next block?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit of Rick Barnes and Tennessee basketball and a new update to the NCAA, which I think we all like to joke at and laugh at nowadays. So we will be back in 2 minutes, guys. Stay with us.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Welcome back. Caleb Calhoun with Jimmy Hyams here. We had Dave at the top of the hour, but he had to go. We are going to talk a little bit about Tennessee basketball. This typically happens during Tennessee football's bye week. It seems like basketball practices for the preseason always begin, and Rick Barnes spoke with the media yesterday. I wouldn't cover it too much in the heat of football season, but I want to get into something, Jimmy, that kind of stood out to me yesterday, which is last offseason, I was very critical, last season, and since he's been at Tennessee, I thought Rick Barnes was a solid hire, but I've always been critical that I felt like he was so old school with his love for the mid-range and defense, and he didn't believe in utilizing the perimeter the way he should, knowing the way college basketball is going. Then I saw how he went in the transfer portal this offseason, got a lot more three-point shooters, and he said yesterday at one point, quote, I know we have more depth on the perimeter than we've had since we've been here. And up to this point, we've shown we can shoot the ball. But I just know that we've got a long way to go defensively, unquote. Is this a good sign for Tennessee that maybe finally Rick Barnes is building a perimeter-based team to keep up with the sport?
Caleb, I don't know. So if you look at the last 2 years with men's basketball, in exhibition games, they'll take 44 three-pointers. The first couple of games of the year, they take 40 three-pointers. And then they start getting into SEC play and they take 12 or 18. They scale it back. They go back to what they were before. So you think they're going to be a prolific or at least shoot a lot more threes. And then as each week goes by, it seems like they would take fewer threes. So I don't know if that's Barnes feeling uncomfortable. He wants to try this three-point thing and see how it's going to go. And then if he doesn't feel like it's working to his satisfaction, he scales it back and they take fewer threes. That's what I've noticed the last 2 years. Is that going to be the same case this year? I don't know. He's got a lot of pretty good three-point shooters. This guy, Knet, that came in, he's a really good player. I had a chance to watch practice the other day. He's really good. Gainey's a good three-point shooter. Ziegler's an okay three-point shooter. He's a threat out there. Vescovy has been their best three-point shooter in recent years. Jordan James is inconsistent. Every now and then he'll pop in a few threes, and then he'll go 1 for 7. But I do think they have the capability of being a much better three-point shooting team. Now, he may be a little bit forced into that from this perspective. Caleb, tell me who is their consistent inside scorer? Who's that guy? Is it Jonas Adu? No, we haven't seen that. Is it going to be a Waka? I don't know. I don't know who is going to be the inside. See, and I think that hurt them last year. They didn't have somebody they could go to inside to get a basket when the other team's on a 6-0 or an 8-0 run. So those runs became 14-2 or 18-4 because they had trouble getting a basket. So I'll be interested to see. I still think while they can be a better three-point shooting team, Caleb, I still think they've got to find an inside guy that can get them a basket to stop some of these runs from other teams, or to be a consistent inside scorer, which also, as you know, helps you get open on the perimeter.
Right. I wonder if they think that Adu is their guy long-term, only because I wonder, do you think that might have been the reason Olivier Nkamwa entered the transfer portal? He thought he couldn't beat out Adu this offseason?
No, he would have started. I actually think Nkamwa preferred to be coached less hard. I will say that. So I think he just felt like it's time to me to get a fresh start somewhere else. But Nkamwa was a starter anyway. So it just, and then he would have a great game. He might get you 27 points in one game and then 2 or 4 the next game. He wasn't consistently good. When you look at his final numbers, they're all right. But I think he preferred less hard coaching, and that's why he left.
Okay. I could see that. I would say I get your point too, because the thing that he did against Duke last year, for instance, when a team drops into a zone and the shot's not falling, who's going to be that guy that can catch the ball right at the free throw line and make that 15-foot jumper? And they may not have that. But I do think that I think Rick Barnes' philosophy, and I want to know your thoughts on this, has been long-term. I think it's a philosophy that actually would have been better suited for the NBA than college, which is that in the NBA defense, I know they say it doesn't play defense, but the best defensive teams usually do win championships because over a 7-game series, defense wins out. But in March Madness, when it's win or go home, you need shooters because you're going to run into a team that's red hot shooting no matter what. And you got to be able to hang with them, don't you?
You do. Yeah, you've got to have offensive production. And the deeper you get in the NCAA tournament, the tighter some of your players get as far as shooting. So that's why you've got to have a lot of good shooters that don't. In other words, a 45% shooter becomes a 40% shooter, or a 48-point shooter, 48% shooter goes to 42, usually in postseason play. So that's why you've got to have guys that are in that 50% range. So when they fall off a little bit, it's not, they're not shooting 38%. But typically when Tennessee gets ousted in the NCAA tournament, what happens? It's a poor shooting game. And that's what's cost them in recent years. They just now Duke, they were outstanding. And then the next game when they should win, they can't throw it in the ocean. So you've got to be able to score. It's a little bit like the modern day college football. You got to be able to score in college football. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to win 10-6. No. That doesn't happen. So you got to have a good offensive team and you've got to have good shooters.
Yeah, and in basketball, it's one of those sports where I'd say if it's a perfect offense and a perfect defense, basically my phrase is, if Jesus Christ is guarding Jesus Christ, the offense is going to win in basketball because perfect offense beats perfect defense in basketball every time. I don't care how good your defense is. If someone's hitting their shots, there's nothing you can do to stop that at all. And
they didn't have the 3-point play when he was playing. 3-point shot wasn't there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They didn't have it when he was playing. But yeah, so that's where I kind of go. Where with football, would you say with football still, I know there's a lot more scoring, but if the perfect offense and the perfect defense happens in a play, would you say still the defense wins, or would you say the offense?
No, I think that's changed. I think offensive players are so skilled now, and a lot of it comes from these 7-on-7 camps. I think the perfect pass gets completed against the perfect defense. So I would say the offense would succeed there. We might ask TCU about that. See how they fared against Georgia.
So. That's a good point. Well, as you and I knew, and as everybody who followed the SEC last year knew, I mean, Georgia beat Tennessee 27-13, but their offense was really, if they wanted to, they could have put up 55 points against Tennessee easily in that game. And I think Kirby Smart chose to run the clock to keep Tennessee's offense from getting in rhythm.
Yeah, he did. I don't know about 55, but certainly a whole lot more than 27. And he may need. I'll be curious to see how many he needs this year. But he did take his foot off the gas. That is true. But here's the thing too. Georgia last year, they would take their foot off the gas when they had scored 40. They're having trouble getting to 40. Even against weak teams. So I'll be curious to see if Carson Beck improves. They got a really good running back. This DeJuan Williams, I think it is, or Edwards. He's a really good back. They've got pretty good receivers. I had been told that Ladd McConkey had been out for a while. Brock Bowers was nicked up early in the year. That's why he wasn't productive, but he's been great the last 2 games. So maybe that'll help jumpstart that offense.
Yeah, which would be scary for the rest of the SEC if they haven't hit another gear yet.
Yeah.
I'll let you address this because I've had fights with many Tennessee fans over my time, Jimmy, about speaking of comebacks and sitting on a lead. I think the most annoying narrative to me is when people in the Knoxville community and the Tennessee Vols community try to make the case that Peyton Manning put up a gutsy performance and Tennessee fought back against Florida in 96 and almost won. Florida let Tennessee back in that game, didn't they? They took their foot off the gas too early.
It's one of the few times I've ever seen Spurrier do that. Yeah, he took his foot off the pedal. It was 35-0, 20 minutes into that game. And then and Danny Werfel, if I'm not mistaken, Werfel threw for 155 yards. That's all. Florida ran the football in the second half to run the clock. Manning had an awful first half. I think he threw 4 interceptions in that game. He was terrible. And then in the second half, Florida took the foot off the pedal, didn't run. They ran the football trying to run the clock, And then they started playing a little bit softer in coverage so they wouldn't give up a 70-yard pass. But Tennessee was never in that football game. And they had to score late to make it 35-29. That was a late score. It wasn't like they had a chance. They cut it to a touchdown. No, that score was so late. That game was over after the first 20 minutes, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. It was my revelation that at the time, now it's different now, but during that time, I felt like most 300, 400-yard games, because Peyton Manning threw for like 466, most 300, 400-yard games happen when a quarterback is trying to bring his team back and the defense is just playing soft coverage and letting you move the ball down the field. Yeah,
I think in that era that was true. Now the way offenses are, they're throwing for 400 yards like Caleb Williams out of Southern Cal with a lead. So I do think the offensive perspective's changed in recent years. But at that time, Caleb, I think you're exactly right. When you look at the most yards that Andy Kelly threw for, Peyton Manning, they were typically in losses.
They were. I think Andy Kelly's best game was that Notre Dame game in 1990, which Tennessee did almost win, but they had to recover an onside kick. It would have been a lucky win had they won.
Yeah.
And so transitioning, you brought up Caleb Williams. Jimmy, I was going to talk about the NCAA, but I actually want, since you're retired now and you're a longtime college football reporter, I want your perspective on this, because I got to tell you, I believe Caleb Williams and USC, obviously, they pulled a Florida against Tennessee in 96, where they built a big lead on Colorado and almost let them back in the game last Saturday. I got to tell you, I believe in what Deion Sanders is doing in Colorado, but I am frustrated by overreactions on both sides. So what I mean by that is Deion's 3-0 start is to be commended. The Vegas set the over-under at 3.5 at Colorado. Then you had people like Skip Bayless pick Colorado to beat Oregon, which anybody who knew a lick about college football knew that Colorado wasn't going to beat Oregon.
Yeah.
And now you have people acting like Deion Sanders has been exposed as some sort of fraud for losing 2 games to top 10 teams. Who's annoying you? Who is annoying you more? People who thought that Colorado was a contender, or people that think Deion Sanders is now underachieving because they reset expectations because of the 3-0 start?
I'm going to go with the latter. Those that think he's underachieving. Just because you came out hot, you probably caught a couple of teams off guard, right? Because Colorado was 1-11, a lot of whole new different players, and some really good players like Travis Hunter, like Shadir Sanders. So you brought in a collection of some really star-powered players. But here was my concern. Colorado at the line of scrimmage is not very good, offense or defense. They're not. And they're not going to win a whole lot more games. But they got this great start. They were the talk of college football. I give them a lot of credit for what they did. I haven't looked at their schedule, but if I had to pick right now, I think they'll be hard-pressed to go better than 6-6. So look, remember, they were 1-11, and he completely changed 95% of the roster, I think, changed. There were a few holdovers. So I think what he's done is very good. He's going to recruit well out there. People know him. They want to play for him. The mamas want their sons to go play for him. So while I think Colorado is going to get it handed to him by several other teams because they're not any good at the line of scrimmage, I still think this turnaround has been pretty remarkable for Deion Sanders.
That's where I am. And it's going to be annoying when they go 6-6 and then people lose all perspective because they had this false hope after a 3-0 start, not realizing that you're right. They caught some teams off guard and they're really undermanned right now. I mean, Vince Lombardi couldn't take this team better than 8-4 probably. And so
and they lost Travis Hunter. They've had some injuries to some key players. And also other teams, and we've touched on this, other teams have had a chance to scout them a little bit and see what they're about. This is what you do. But one reason I thought Oregon would blow them out is the line of scrimmage. I did not think that Colorado could block Oregon, that Oregon was going to put all kind of pressure on Sanders. Southern Cal doesn't have a good defense. Now, I'm surprised that it got to, 48-41, something like that. And Southern Cal led 34-7, and they were blowing them out, and then Colorado rallied. But Southern Cal doesn't have a good defense. So that kind of helped. I don't know how much USC took their foot off the pedal. I didn't see the game, but I was surprised that it ended up being a 7-point game.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I always felt like offensively, Josh Heupel and Lincoln Riley almost run the same offense with the wide splits and things like that. But the difference is I think Josh Heupel doesn't just throw defense out the window. And I think Lincoln Riley cares absolutely nothing about defense whatsoever.
He wants to get the ball back.
Yeah. He's the Mike D'Antoni.
So I can go score again.
Exactly. Yeah. He's the Mike D'Antoni of college football.
Yeah,
And,
that's right.
and so, yeah, and that's where I am. And so, as a guy who covered the sport for a long time, do you think long-term somebody like Deion is good for the sport, good for college football, Colorado?
I think so. Let me say this, though. I was bothered a little bit that he turned the roster over like that, because I think a lot of the players that he ran off did not find a home and didn't have a scholarship anywhere. I'm not a fan of that. I understood it, but I still didn't really like it. It wasn't. And I'm not saying some of them shouldn't have been run off if they weren't given the effort or whatever, but I didn't care that much for that. But I've got to admire what he's been able to do at Colorado, the belief that he's instilled in them, the confidence he's instilled in them. He's got the fan base believing. And so overall, yes, I think he's been good for college football.
I'm with you on that. And I actually am 100% with you. I didn't like the running off players. I think in this era with the level of pressure that's on coaches and things like that, I think that given player power, I think a lot of people didn't realize that the power you're giving them with the transfer portal and NIL, you're also giving coaches power now to run off players more than they used to be able to.
Yeah, that's true. And then their excuse is, well, I can go get this guy in the transfer portal and he can play for me right away. And that guy's better than the one I just had, so I'm gonna clear out. You won't see that kind of turnover typically with a coach that's been in a program for several years. That most of that you see early. Even with Josh Heupel, I mean, he took a lot of transfers early, in part because he lost 40-something players that could have been on the roster. But he took a lot early. And as you're seeing with Tennessee more recently, I think they're going to have maybe 4 to 6 transfers a year. Not get into double figures like they did the first year under Heupel. So I think that's the trend that we're going to see. And Clemson won't take any, right?
That's true.
Which that might be Dabo Swinney's downfall.
Oh yeah, not taking transfers and publicly complaining about NIL money too is. I mean, I think that. Look, in Tennessee, I think you and I both know, and Dave and I have talked about this. This is why the South Carolina win was so big. Tennessee needs Clemson to fall off, and they need to pounce on South Carolina, because I think it's hard for Tennessee to be a powerhouse if they can't recruit South Carolina. It's a big, important state for them to be able to recruit talent-wise.
It is. And if you look at, I think I'm right about this, the 1998 team, the national championship team, I think their starting front four were all from South Carolina.
Yeah, they were. Darwin Walker, Billy Ratliff, Sean Ellison, Jeff Coleman, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And then later, Albert Hainsworth came from South Carolina. After that, which had to be one of the most fun people to cover.
He was, when he wasn't carrying around one of those big rods, chasing after players at practice with that rod. But well, and Albert was a tremendous player. He was not as productive as he could have or should have been, but boy, he had some years with the Titans where he was one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL.
Oh, he did. I was a fan. It seemed like he was super nice, so you had to get him to get mean. But then once you got him mean, he took it to a way too mean level and a little too far, and he couldn't get that balance right. I feel like. Yeah, that's true. And but as far as the talent, I mean, he was 6'6", he was over 300 pounds. He moved very well. He was quick. He had great hands. He had a lot of the skill set that you would want to be a great defensive lineman in the NFL. And for a number of years, he was. He was. Jimmy, thanks a lot for hanging with me the last couple of segments. I know I am not envying Dave having to go to Massachusetts right now. I think it's going to although Massachusetts around Halloween seems pretty nice. So that's always fun. But we really appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the day. And again, thanks for doing 2 segments with me. Caleb, you're welcome. You have a great day as well. Thanks. With Caleb Calhoun, Jimmy Hyams, this has been a production of Off the Hook Sports. Dave Hooker was there the first segment. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I will be on tomorrow with Caleb Jarreau, so it'll be the Caleb Show. And then I'll be on again Friday. So thanks a lot. You guys all have a great rest of your day.